Swing it up and drive.
Swing, long drive, way back. It's good.
There's a new home run champion of all time.
Sandy into his windup. Here's the pitch.
El Presidente has painted an absolute masterpiece.
He's going. It's coming around. 3 to the plate.
And he could end it all now with the most dramatic of flourishes.
What a performance. He is absolutely fabulous.
You're looking at one for the ages here.
He is Mr. November.
This is one of the all-time great balls.
She is gone. The remarkable Ryan has attained baseball immortality.
The greatest of all time.
Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. They're going crazy. I don't believe what I just saw.
First base, Lou Gehrig, the batter. The pitch, and Gehrig swings a ground ball past Kenny, gets into center field for a base hit. Demands over third, there's no one out, and that brings up Bill Dickey.
There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who love Old Bay, and those who've never tried it. Because once you taste this Chesapeake Bay seasoning, you'll immediately be turned into a canvert. Old Bay goes great on seafood, chicken, corn on the cob, french fries, pretty much anything. Join the legion of canverts in America. Pick up a can today. And before you know it, this could be you. Old Bay, the can that connects us.
3:33 in the series, 5 for 15. Shoemaker on the mound. The line by the right-hander for the Giants, and here's the pitch. A swing and a drive. It's past Perry down the right field line, and it's getting away from Mott. And there goes Gehrig. Look at the iron horse gallop. He's around second. Gehrig on his way to third, and he steams in there. It's a single and an error by us. The next 2-2. Davis to left and will hit. Oh my! It's gone! Santa Maria!
From high atop the Robinson Gearing Studio Complex and straight out of God's country, Pawleys Island, South Carolina, the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network proudly presents Backwards K-Pod. And now, here's the host of the show, Jake Robinson.
I never move in slow-mo. Welcome to my dojo. There's other parts of so-so. I'm chill like bro, yo. Focus like a GoPro. Ripping up this promo. Check out the scoreboard. Bring some throwing no. Going. Yo, it's gone. Your heart just stopped. Cause Jake got strong and mighty. Undefeated, I mean it. Pull up the spots, roll it down, then read it. Written, produced, directed, and mixed. Tongue on your lips and Ozzy Smith backflips. Pick a tip, any tip, get on to it. I got ridiculous parts without forcing it. You sit at home crying like a girl while I spread the gospel around the world. Yo, the pods are written behind tracks that mixed it smooth with the groove to make ears wanna listen. Add a little cut and a rhythm to back it up. Another show to my name, now watch me stack them up. You think another like rap back, but this ain't no ad chat. My hobbies are rhymes, some people trying to be black, but that about time I come out for the show. BKB and let me turn it out, yo. Name check the snake, born to 71. Dates, you know what time it is, I'm packing them guns. Show experience, I've been a witness to glory, and that's why I collect ball players and their stories. You heard? So, once again, back is the incredible, the pond animal, Jake the Snake Robinson from the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. I'm coming out of Pawleys Island, South Kakalaki. Half podcast machine. Back in the Captain Kirk chair, shields down, photons up. Prepare to engage on this week's digital audio program that I call Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. What's cracking, Steamheads? What's good? Welcome back into the dojo for the Grassroots Baseball Podcast, spanning the globe. BKP, you nerds. A place where we examine and record the moments, the players, the characters that have made the indelible moments of baseball history stand up to the test of time. It's your boy, the good Reverend Snake Robinson, opining the seams. I got your hookup. Holler if you hear me. I see my felonious beeline of my co-host Gunnar Henderson setting up shop in the conductor's booth of our time travel scene Diesel, sipping on his catnip tea, ready to get us on our way for this week's baseball adventure. So, let's clear the platform here at Terrapin Station. Kiss and hug your loved ones goodbye. As I look to the west of Terrapin, I can see right down the left field line and into our immaculate Jewel Box ballpark. The fans are still filtering into the yard, and our hometown BKP9 have taken the field. The pitcher has completed his warm-up tosses. The catcher has gone down to second. The infield is flipping that seat around the infield, and the umpire has called play ball. And that's my call, my cue, as usual, to call all aboard. As I will have Gunnar set our time and destination for June 1st, 1925, the day that a baseball legacy was born. That was the first day of a consecutive game played streak of 2,130 games. For this week's topic, the immortal Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig. So, hurry, step right up. Get in where you've been and take off your shoes. Kick up your feet, open your kimonos. Get yourself real comfortable for this week's story, as we got more ground to cover than Alomar at second base out at Skydome. 4th of July, 1939, between games of a doubleheader, nearly 42,000 baseball fans sat quietly in the stands, waiting for the team's first baseman to address the Bronx faithful. And it was Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day, which sounds like it should have been a happy occasion, but it wasn't. A few weeks earlier, Lou had learned he was suffering from an incurable disease that would ultimately prevent him from playing baseball for the brief time that he had left. The proud warrior was but a shadow of himself that day. His pinstripe uniform had hung loosely from his weakening body. His face was gaunt and tired as he walked slowly across the field. He looks exhausted, but he stands before the loud crowd, politely smiling as he's greeting teammates and accepting gifts from the Yankees and the visiting Washington Center, stadium employees, and the mayor of New York City. When it had come time for Lou to make his speech, he fought through the tears, and just as he had done in 2,130 consecutive games, the Iron Horse gathered himself and forged ahead. And what follows was an address for the ages. It is as much part of the Americana experience to this day as the Gettysburg Address. I have a dream. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. In his heartfelt speech, he proclaims that despite an illness, he considered himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. And there isn't a dry to be found in Yankee Stadium, and it is the most bittersweet end to an iconic career. One that goes back to 1923. It includes 2 MVP trophies, nearly 2,000 runs batted in, and 8 world championships. Henry Louis Gehrig was born January 19, 1903 to Heinrich and Christina Gehrig, 2 first-gen German immigrants who lived in the Yorkville section of Manhattan. And he was a huge baby. Some reports have him weighing as much as 14 pounds at birth. And though Lou was not the couple's only child, I do find it interesting, considering the circumstances of the tragic ending for Lou, that he was the sole Gehrig baby to survive into adulthood. An older sister, Anna, died September 5th, 1902, when she was just 3 months old. A second daughter, Sophie Louise, contracted a combination of measles, diphtheria, and bronchopneumonia when she is barely 1 year old and passes away in the winter of 1906. Heinrich and Christina had another child, a boy, but he died almost immediately after birth, and he was never even given a name. And considering all this, maybe Lou really was the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Lou's father was a part-time sheet metal worker who was regularly unemployed because he had a tendency to drink excessively and was subject to bouts of ill health. Accordingly, Lou's mom was the breadwinner and the disciplinarian for the family. Christina had already lost 3 children, and she became very protective of her sole surviving son. When Lou was 5, the family moves from Yorkville to Washington Heights. The new apartment was but a long fly ball from Hilltop Park, home of the New York Highlanders in the American League, and right across the Harlem River was the greatest baseball crib of them all, Polo Grounds, home of the National League Giants. And living so close to these ballparks, it gave Lou an early appetite for the game. He begins playing pickup games in his hood, and he quickly realizes he's better than most of the other kids. He soon becomes one of the best sandlot players in the city. And unfortunately for Lou, his parents were not thrilled with his newfound love of baseball. His mother would chide him, calling it a mere schoolyard game. She was a hard-working, poor, first-gen immigrant who had little opportunity for a better life. Instead, she wanted Lou to be in business someday. And she felt like Lou should be devoting his time with the studies and not on a kid's game. In 1917, Gehrig enrolls at Commerce High School in Manhattan, where he stars in both baseball and football. He first gains national recognition for his baseball prowess on June 26, 1920, when his New York City High School championship team, Commerce High, took on the Windy City champion, Chicago's Lane Tech High School, before 10,000 fans at Cubs Park, which would be renamed Wrigley Field 6 years later. In the top of the ninth, with Commerce up 8-6, Lou hammers the final nail in the coffin with a prodigious grand slam blast. The next day, articles in newspapers were marveling at the raw power of the high school kid. And in the Chicago Tribune, it read, Gehrig's blow would have made any big leaguer proud, yet it was walloped by a boy who hasn't even yet started to shape. The New York Daily News referred to him as the brightest star of the inner city game and called him Babe Gehrig in a nod to his future teammate who was destroying baseballs in the majors at this time. Gehrig graduated from Commerce High in January 27, 1921. He enrolled at Columbia University on a football scholarship. And at that time, college baseball is not very well organized, and many teams back then played an abbreviated schedule. Therefore, not many scouts visited college baseball games searching for talent. But Lou's exploits at the game in Chicago, he carried some cachet, and he was well known before putting it on a college uniform. A scout for the New York Giants, Arthur Irwin, told Gehrig that Giants manager John McGraw had seen him play, and he liked the cut of his jib, and he was interested in signing the 18-year-old. Gehrig attends a tryout at Polo Grounds in June of 1921. However, contrary to what Irwin had told him, the Giants manager had never seen Lou play, and certainly had never expressed interest in signing him. 6 consecutive home runs at batting practice caught everyone's attention, but when Lou let the first grounder in the field go through his legs, McGraw tells Irwin to get this kid off the field, that he has enough lousy players on the team without adding another one. And Gehrig goes home defeated, but not deterred, and neither was Irwin. He told Lou that he could get him a contract with the Hartford Senators and the Class A Eastern League for the rest of the 1921 season. While there, Lou plays a dozen games for Hartford under 2 assumed names, Lefty Gehrig and Lou Lewis. And it's not clear if Lou knew that playing for money in Hartford could jeopardize his college eligibility. Irwin supposedly told him there would be no problem, but one must wonder if Lou wasn't suspicious about having to play under an alias. Regardless, Andy Coakley, Columbia's baseball coach, he soon discovers that Lou Lewis of Hartford was actually his first baseman for the Columbia Nine. Lou Gehrig, who had indeed violated his eligibility status by playing professional baseball and could be banned from college sports. Coakley contacts the coaches of all Columbia's biggest rivals, Dartmouth, Cornell, Amherst, Middlebury, and asks each of them for a special dispensation for what he called an honest mistake by Gehrig. The coaches agree not to expel him, but they do suspend him for a year. In 1923, after serving his 1-year suspension, Gehrig sets the college baseball world on fire. In the 19-game season, he set school records in batting average at .444, slugging at .937, and home runs with 7. His power at the plate was becoming the stuff of legend, but he was also the team's top pitcher. On April 18, 1923, in a game versus Williams College, Lou strikes out 17 batters, setting a school record that still stands over 101 years later. For the season, the strapping southpaw pitched in 11 of the team's 19 games. He put up a 6-4 record, struck out 77 batters. On April 26, 1923, Yankee scout Paul Critzel took a train from New York City to New Brunswick, New Jersey to watch a game between Columbia and Rutgers. While on the train, he happened to sit next to Coach Coakley, who was filling Critzel's head with all the superlatives of Lou Gehrig. Lou launches 2 home runs and 3 at-bats against Rutgers that day, and Critzel is so impressed that he telephones Yankees GM Ed Barrow, and he tells him that he has just found another Babe Ruth. In Gehrig's next game against NYU, he goes 2 for 3 with a dong. He also pitches a complete game for a good measure. Critzel doesn't need to see anymore. He approaches Lou after the game, and he sets up a meeting between Lou and Yankees GM Ed Barrow for the next morning. Barrow offers Lou a contract that gives him a $1,500 signing bonus and $400 a month. Now, $1,500 signing bonus in 1923 is worth around $28,000 in the 2024 economy, and $400 a month is around $7,400 today, which was like a veritable fortune to the impoverished Gehrig family. He accepts the deal, happy to earn money for his family, not terribly sad to leave a college where he had made very few ties. After 7 games at the big league level, Yankees manager Miller Huggins sent him to play with the Hartford Senators for a year. While in Hartford, Lou excels. In 59 games, he hits .304 with 24 big flies. When Hartford's season ended in September, the Yankees recall him, and in 6 games he hits .476 with 4 doubles, a dong, and 8 ribs. And because of his hot bat down the stretch, Huggins wants to add him to the postseason roster for the World Series against crosstown rival Giants. He makes a formal request to Baseball Commissioner Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and it gets rejected because of the objections of Giants manager John McGraw, the same guy who had unceremoniously rejected Lou just 2 years earlier. Ultimately, it didn't matter as the Yankees devour the Giants in 6 games, but Lou is chomping at the bit. Although Gehrig attended spring training with the Yankees in 1924, the team could not find a permanent position, and management still wanted him to get a little more seasoning in the minors. So Gehrig goes back once again to Hartford, where he hits .369 with 37 home runs, 40 doubles, 13 triples, in 134 games. When the season ends, Miller Huggins once again invites Lou to join the Yankees in September. In limited service, he astounds. He's hitting .500 with 5 RBI and 12 at-bats. But the most memorable moment in this brief stint occurred in a game versus the Detroit Tigers. Gehrig hit a 2-run single to right. He veers a little wide, rounding first, and he gets caught on first base, extending the play into a rundown pickle. Now, Ty Cobb is playing center field that day, sprints into the infield, and eventually tags out the young slugger, and he has some choice words as he applies the out. And Gehrig was usually an even-keeled, dignified player who rarely raised any sorts of ruckus on the field. But whatever Ty said to him on that day pissed him off something but good. He cusses at Tyrus Raymond as he's walking on the field, and he continues screaming at the Georgia Peach from the rail of the dugout. The umpire warns Gehrig to zip it. But Lou is in the red, and he's throwing zingers at a Cobb in center field, who is yelling back in between smirks and his cold, dead, competitive eyes. Finally, the umpire's had enough, and he runs Gehrig, which only pisses off Lou and more. At the conclusion of the game, Gehrig goes after Cobb in the tunnel between the clubhouse and the dugout. He's out of his mind now. He's manning up on Cobb. At any second now, this is going to get physical. The Babe steps in. He tries to contain Lou, but Lou just shoves her to the side like a rag doll, and he hurls a punch at the baseball villain of his day. Unfortunately for Lou, he banned on the haymaker as Cobb deftly sidestepped the punch. Gehrig stumbled forward. He lands on his head on the concrete floor, and he was temporarily knocked out. And after a few minutes, he comes to see his concerned teammates huddled around him, and he sits up and he says, "Did I win?" But he did not. But the youngster learned that day that few ever get the better of Cobb. The Tigers took 2 of 3 in the series, and the Yankees finished in second place, a mere 2 games behind the Washington Senators. But Lou Gehrig's pro career is officially underway. And here we are, freaks, coming out of that last wormhole and straight into June 1st, 1925, for what will be an inauspicious start to a streak that will see Lou Gehrig play in the next 2,131 consecutive games over a 15-year span. As Lou walks to the dish, pitch hitting for Pee Wee Waniger. He has no ambition of becoming a household name. No ambition of setting a bar that would take decades to break. As he stands at home plate, all he can think about is his parents. Both of his parents were ill, and he was always motivated to succeed on their behalf. Baseball offered financial security, and he figures he has 10 years at the most. And he made up his mind to play the game the best way he could during that period. Huggins had made up his mind. Gehrig was ready to play. Everyday player. But there's a small problem. The Bombers already had first baseman Wally Pipp on the roster. He was coming off a year in which he hit .295 with 19 triples, 9 home runs, and 114 RBI. Pipp had been the starter for almost a decade and was in his prime, 32 years old of age. So, despite his potential, there still wasn't a position or a spot in the lineup for Lou. He serves as a backup player and a pinch hitter throughout April and May. And on June 2nd, Huggins decides to start Gehrig and give Pipp a rest. And why Huggins made the decision to replace Wally Pipp has been the source of much confusion throughout the years. And part of that blame is attributed to Wally Pipp himself. According to the popular version, which first appeared in a 1941 New York Times, Pipp came into the clubhouse on June 2nd, 1925, complaining of a headache and asking his teammates if anyone had an aspirin. Huggins, overhearing Pipp's request, allegedly says, "Why don't you take the days off? I'll use that Gehrig kid at first today." In 1953, Pipp had a much different version of the events to his recollection. According to Wally, he was taking batting practice that day, and Big Charlie Caldwell threw a pitch that he just couldn't dunk, and the ball hit him in the temple. He sat in the hospital for 2 weeks, and by the time he returned, he remembered Gehrig was hitting the ball all over the yard, and Huggins would have been a dope to give him his job back. But actually, neither apocryphal story is correct. Pipp did get beaten that year in batting practice and suffered a severe concussion, but that event did not occur until a month later on July 2nd. Nor was it a headache or a hangover that kept Wally on the bench. In all reality, it was Pipp's play, as he was hitting a lowly .244 at the time, and the team's lackluster performance. The Yankees were floundering in 7th place, where they would finish that season. Batting 6th, behind Babe Ruth and Bob Musial, Lou goes 3 for 5 with a double in the first game at first base that season. Huggins was obviously thrilled with the result, so before the next game, he approaches Lou in the clubhouse and he tells him, "You're my first baseman today and from now on. Don't get rattled if you muff a few. Nobody's gonna shoot you." That first year as a Yankees everyday first baseman, Gehrig hits .295 with 23 doubles, 10 triples, 20 doms, 68 RBI, finishing 24th in AL MVP voting. His showing was good enough to convince Huggins that Gehrig was the first baseman of the future and Wally Pipp was the first baseman of the past. So on January 15th, 1926, the Yankees sell Wally Pipp to the Cincinnati Reds for $7,500, where he plays the final 3 years of his career. $7,500 in 1926, it has the spending power of around $133,000 today in the 2024 economy. And I tell you what, freaks, let's take a break right here. When I return, we'll break down Acts 2 and 3 of the life and career of the great Lou Gehrig. You're listening to BKP and the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. where we collect ball players and their stories. BRB, you nerds. See you on the dark side of the moon.
The bottom of the 11th.
Bottom of the 12th inning. So the tying run is at second, but the game right now is at the plate. And look who's coming up.
We've got Ishikawa, Chris Emma, David Ortiz.
George Brett, Joe Carter is the batter. Now listen to the ovation as he comes up to the plate.
And he gets his pitch. I want him to drive one.
Kent leads. 3-2 in the air. A drive to right. Down the line. A hit down the left line. Hits one into right. There goes the long drive. If it stays fair.
High fly ball into right field. And the fly ball to center field and drive to left.
It's mighty high.
There it goes.
It's mighty far. It's gone.
See ya. See ya. See ya. What a colossal blow.
Touch them all, Joe. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. And we will see you tomorrow night.
He is Mr. November. The impossible has happened. What a performance.
Over the plate, he hits a high fly back in the right center field. It may be in. It's back. It's a home run. Lou Gehrig hit a home run into the stands in right center field.
Howdy, y'all. This is Big Tex Gage Dean, executive producer of Backwards K Pod. In Texas, we do everything big. After football and golf, there's probably nothing I love more than going fishing and enjoying a good crawfish boil. The only thing I dislike about going fishing is the lingering odor it can leave on your hands afterwards. Well, the Fish and Hand Cleaner is an all-natural liquid soap perfect for overpowering fish and bait odors from your hands. I can't tell you how many times I've eaten steamed crabs, lobster, shrimp, crawfish, and then washed my hands with regular soap, only to touch my eyes half hour later, and my face begins to melt off due to the damn Cajun Old Bay spices. Well, we also have a hand cleaner specifically formulated to use after eating shellfish and other seafoods. Perfect for cleaning spicy, smelly hands after a Texas-sized seafood feast. In these cases, don't settle for anything less than our crawfish hand cleaner, our crab hand cleaner, or the fish and hand cleaner. An ingenious trifecta of natural hand soaps developed and owned by a disabled Navy veteran. He and Jake have a true connection, as they were boot camp shipmates all the way back in 1989. So he is family, folks, and one thing we do here at the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network is look out for family. So you can support two grassroots companies by two former shipmate Navy vets, crushing big bowls of shellfish or fishing on the banks of your favorite river while you listen to BKP. Sounds like a great day. You know, in fact, hey Mom, where are my poles? I'm gone fishing. There is also a buffalo wing hand cleaner in development as we speak. To check all of the incredible products of this great company, you can go to www.crawfishhandcleaner.com or call the home offices at 713-588-0290. That's 713-588-0290 to support the grassroots company that supports your grassroots podcast show. That's crawfishhandcleaner.com or 713-588-0290 to prepare for your summertime shellfish feast or that fishing trip you're planning. crawfishhandcleaner.com.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today? that I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
Welcome back, Steamheads, to the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network. This is Backwards K-Pod, where we collect ball players and their stories. I'm your host, Jake Robinson, and this week we're doing a deep dive into the life and career of one Larapin Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse. And before I broke the spots, I gave you a little background on a young Lou Gehrig coming of age, the son of a poor first-generation German immigrants to the United States. Born in New York City, 1903, one of only 4 Gehrig children to survive infancy. And from an early age, Lou shows himself to be a gifted athlete, excelling at both football and baseball, and going on to pitch at Columbia University and the Hartford Senators, notably. But it's the Iron Horse's bat that the Yankees are interested in, and in 1925, he supplants the longtime New York veteran first baseman Wally Pitt for his position. In 1926, Gehrig continues to improve. He's hitting .313, 47 doubles, 20 triples, 16 home runs, 109 RBI, and playing in all of the Yankees' 155 games. His highlight for the regular season came on August 13th while facing Walter Johnson and the Washington Senators. The big trade, who would go on to win 417 games in his career and only surrendered 97 career home runs in 802 games, and had never given up multiple home runs to a player in a game, gave up 2 majestic blasts over the right field fence at Griffith Stadium. A month later, September 19th, Gehrig smacks 3 doubles and he hit a bomb against the Cleveland Indians, leading the Yankees to their first AL pennant since 1923. The 1926 World Series saw the Yanks and the St. Louis Cardinals square up. And Gehrig's first fall classic, he paced the Yankees' offensive production, hitting .348, but the Bombers would lose to the Cards in 7 games. And despite Gehrig's impressive season, manager Miller Huggins challenged Lou to pull the ball more next season. He wanted Lou to take advantage of that short right field porch that stood just 295 feet from home plate in Yankee Stadium. In 1927, Lou responds, batting cleanup for a lineup that is so ferocious, the beat writers are calling them Murderers Row. They led the American League in every category except doubles, where they ranked second. And the cherry on top was the home run race between Lou and Babe Ruth. For the first time in his career, Ruth had an adversary who could match him home run for home run. And by the end of May, the Babe leads Lou 16-12. By the end of June, they both have 25 apiece. By the end of July, Gehrig had 35, Ruth has 34, and the two go back and forth through August, and by Labor Day, they both have 88 home runs between them with 44 apiece. But Ruth goes on a tear. He hits 11 home runs in his last 21 games, and he finishes the season with an astounding 60 home runs. Gehrig, on the other hand, went into a funk, and he hit only 3 more home runs to finish with 47. By comparison, the Red Sox as a team in 1927, they hit 28 home runs, and the Indians, they hit just 26. Although Gehrig did not best Ruth in the home run category, he did have an amazing season. He batted .373 with 47 home runs and a league-leading 173 RBI. A team record 52 doubles, and his 117 extra bases are still the second most in Major League history for a season, behind George Herman's 119 in 1921. The Yankees clinch another pennant with a 110 and 44 record. They go on to sweep the Pittsburgh Pirates in the World Series. Gehrig has a respectable series. He's batting .308 with 4 RBI. In October, Gehrig is named AL MVP, and it should be noted that in those days, players were not permitted to win multiple MVP awards, which left Ruth out of the running for the award, since he had previously won the honor back in 1921. By this time, Ruth and Gehrig were close friends. Gehrig took the Babe on fishing excursions, and Ruth would try to take Lou out to a few bars, but the real bond was probably Gehrig's mom, whom he adored. The two men were good for each other's wallets, too. That fall, the two did a 3-week-long barnstorming tour, captaining all-star teams made up of local players in the markets that they were touring in. Gehrig's team was the Larrapin Lou's, and Ruth was the Boston Babes. The tour drew over 250,000 Seamans. In 1928, Gehrig, Ruth, and the Yankees, they come back strong, winning 101 games and beating a good Philadelphia Athletics team that featured Al Simmons, Jimmy Fox, Eddie Collins, Lefty Grove, and a pair of aging dead ball legends in Ty Cobb and Tris Speaker. The Yankees sweep the Cardinals in the World Series, and Gehrig is a monster. He bats .545 with 4 home runs, 9 RBI, but he is still in the looming shadow of Ruth, who bats .625 and hits 3 home runs in Game 4. 1929 saw the rise of a new dynasty with Connie Mack and the Filthy A's. The Athletics won 39 of the first 50 games, and they never looked back, clinching the pennant on September 19th. The next day, manager Miller Huggins, who had been ill for weeks, was diagnosed with a rare skin infection which had injected into his bloodstream. Despite receiving poor blood transfusions in less than a week, Huggins died on September 25th, 1929, at the age of 51. A little more than a month after Huggins dies, the stock market crashes and the nation falls into the Great Depression. After a decade of decadence, glitz, glamour, and overindulgence, an era exemplified by the larger-than-life personality of Babe Ruth, the country was headed into dark, hard times, and it needed a new baseball hero. One that was solid, dependable, and dignified. The baseball universe will find that hero in Lou Gehrig. With Huggins gone, the Yankees found their new skipper in former star pitcher Bob Shalke, who had never managed previously in the major leagues. Gehrig responds with another stellar season. That season bat .379 with 41 dongs and a league-leading 147 RBI. Even though Lou played the last 3 weeks of the season with a broken finger that required surgery after the campaign ended. The Yankees as a team, they stumbled to an 86-win campaign, 16 games behind Connie Mack and the Philadelphia A's. And as a result, the Yanks did not renew Shalke's contract to manage the team. Instead, Ed Barrow turns to Joe McCarthy, who had managed 5 years for the Cubs and led the Northsiders to the 1929 National League pennant. In 1931, the Yankees improved to 94 wins, but the A's won 107 and claimed the AL pennant again. Gehrig has a tremendous season, leading the American League in hits with 211, runs scored, 163. Total bases with 410. He bats .341, and his 184 runs batted in is an AL record that still stands today. He also ties the great Bambino for the league lead in dongs with 46. By 1932, the nation has fallen deeper into financial peril. Banks all over the country are collapsing. Unemployment has risen to 25%, and it was affecting baseball. Attendance at Yankee Stadium saw a 20% decline in 1931, and considering the country's dim financial outlook, team management didn't foresee an uptick at the gates in 1932. After 3 years of falling short, the Yankees bounced back and won the league pennant in 1932. They won 107 games and won the pennant by 13 games over Filthy. And it's another banner year in the Gehrig household as he hits .349 with 34 home runs, 151 RBIs, his third straight year of driving in over 150 runs. In the 1932 World Series, Gehrig hits .529, smashes 3 home runs, and he drove in 8. And that was the World Series where his great play was once again overshadowed by the Babe and his famous called shot off of Charlie Root of the Cubs. But perhaps even more important than winning that World Series, Gehrig meets his future wife and confidant prior to Game 3. At a party thrown by one of their mutual friends, Lou meets Eleanor Grace Twitchell, a 25-year-old secretary from Chicago. Unlike Lou, she's an extrovert at a time when most women didn't drink or smoke in public, particularly with prohibition in effect. Eleanor is not afraid to indulge in both. She smoked, played poker, and drank bathtub gin, and Lou fell hard. Despite their obvious differences, Lou and Eleanor hit it off at the party, and they continued their correspondence, writing each other often before their reunion in Chicago when the Yankees came to play the White Sox on May 8th, 1933. Lou proposes the day after the Yankees pulled into Chicago, and Eleanor accepts. Now, Christina Gehrig, the overprotective and doting mother, did not approve of Eleanor or the marriage, but that didn't stop Lou, and the two were married on September 29th, 1933. Gehrig and the Yankees failed to make the post for the next 3 years, but some of the most pivotal moments of his career happened during that span. Early in 1933, New York World Telegram sports writer Dan Daniel asked Lou if he has any idea how many consecutive games he has played. Gehrig thinks aloud, well, I started playing every day in 1925. This is 1933, so I don't know. I guess I played somewhere in the hundreds. To which Daniel replies, it's much more than that, Lou. He then tells him that as that day, he has played 1,250 consecutive games and only 57 games shy of the record set by Everett Scott, the former shortstop of the Yankees between 1916 and 1925. Due to Daniel's diligence and the impending breaking of a big league record, it soon becomes public knowledge, and sports writers throughout the country began to cover the streak. On July 6, 1933, Major League Baseball held its first ever All-Star game. Gehrig won the starting first baseman spot with almost 3 times more votes than runner-up Jimmy Fox. In the game, he goes 0-2 with 2 walks as the AL wins 4-2. A few weeks later, after that All-Star game on August 17th, 1933, Gehrig plays in his 1,308th consecutive game, surpassing Scott's benchmark. And Gehrig downplayed the achievement, reminding writers that ball players have off days and rain delays, and they only work about 8 months out of the year. And to Lou, it was almost a gimmicky stunt. But he doubted anybody else will ever try it again. The 1934 season marks the last year that Lou and the Babe played together. Slowed by age, poundage, and overindulgence, Ruth hit 288 with only 22 home runs. And while Ruth faded, Gehrig continued to shine. At 32 years old, he became only the third player in the history of the game to lead both the American League and National League in batting average, 363, 49 home runs, and 165 RBI. Gehrig begins the 1935 season as the undisputed leader of the Yankees. On April 21st, Joe McCarthy officially named Gehrig the team captain. Now, his offensive production was down in 1935 without the usual supporting cast around him. Tony Lazzari struggled through injuries. Ruth's replacement, George Selkirk, he played well, but he was no Babe. And Bill Dickey's batting average, it dropped nearly 50 points. With a weak lineup around him, pitchers chose to work around Lou, walking him a career-high 132 times that year, which helped him lead the league in OBP, 466, and runs scored with 125. However, his power numbers were off from his trajectory, hitting 30 home runs and driving in 119. After enjoying his season as the undisputed star of the Yankees, he found himself upstage in 1936 by the arrival of Joe DiMaggio. Although Lou had the better season statistically than Joe D, the younger player grabbed most of the headlines despite all the press, and despite DiMaggio's fantastic rookie campaign, Gehrig was clearly the better player in 1936. He hit .354, led the league with 49 home runs, finished second in RBIs with 152. Gehrig also led the league in runs scored with 167, OBP at 478, slug 699, and times on base 342. In October, he was named AL MVP for the second time in his career. In the World Series, Gehrig hit .292 with 2 home runs and 7 RBI as the Yankees choke out their crosstown rival New York Giants, their first World Series championship in 4 years. 1937 was Gehrig's last great year, and it would be the last time he played a year in good health. The Yankees continued their AL dominance, winning the pennant for the second straight year. He hit .351 with 37 home runs, 159 RBIs, and of course he played in every one of the Yankee games, extending his record streak to 1,965 games. The Yankees faced the Giants again, and again they scorched them in the 1937 Fall Classic in 5 games. Gehrig plays well in the series, batting .295, driving in 3 runs. In the 9th inning of Game 4, he clobbers a pitch of Carl Hubble for the last of his 10 career World Series blasts. On May 31st of 1938, he was set to play in his 2,000th consecutive game, but his wife Eleanor was becoming concerned about the toll his body was taking, and she suggested that Lou maybe take a day off. Why not stop at 1,999, she asked. People will remember the streak better at that number. And Gehrig told her that owner Colonel Rupert would never forgive him if he sat out. He ignores her advice, and he plays that day. He got a hit, and the streak was at an even 2,000 games. But as the summer progressed, Gehrig inexplicably begins to break down. A lumbago attack forced him out of a game after 5 innings of play against the Cleveland Indians. A few days later, Lou caught a low throw from Spud Chandler, severely jams his thumb, knocked him out after the 7th inning, and he continues to play through the pain. But unlike previous seasons, Gehrig didn't hit. An extended drought in July and August led some of the New York sports writers to openly ask if Gehrig was in decline. He even went to a lighter bat, going from swinging a hefty 30-ounce club to a 33-ounce stick. He changed his batting style, relying more on his hands and arms to punch at the ball rather than drive it. He's now collecting singles instead of extra base hits. By the middle of August, Gehrig has had enough, and a frustration he says, fuck it, I'm not hitting through all these different stances and approach. I'm just going to go back to my old way. And despite the season of struggles, Lou finishes with a respectable but an un-Gehrig-like .295 average, 29 home runs, and 114 RBI. The Yankees won a third straight pennant over the second-place Red Sox by 9.5 games. They go on to sweep the Cubs for another chip. Gehrig hits .286, but he failed to pick up an extra base hit. During the off-season, he exercised all winter. He often ice skating with Eleanor at the Playland Casino Ice Rink in Rye, New York. On a few occasions, Gehrig lost his strength and collapsed on the ice. At the behest of Eleanor, Lou sees a doctor who diagnoses him with a gallbladder problem and places him on a bland diet. But it didn't help. Gehrig continues to feel weak and lethargic throughout the winter. And he hopes the break in the weather and playing spring ball in Florida will help, but it does not. In his first 10 exhibition games, Lou is batting an anemic 100 with no extra base hits. During one spring training batting session, Joe DiMaggio looks on as Lou missed 19 pitches in a row. All of them fastballs, the kind of meatballs Lou used to eviscerate. Then he started having trouble catching throws to first base in the field. In the clubhouse one afternoon, Gehrig collapses while trying to put on his uniform pants. DiMaggio and the clubhouse attendant Pete Sheehy, they rushed over to help their fallen captain, but he waves them off. A few days later, while talking to teammate and pitcher Wes Farrell, Gehrig suddenly falls backward hard. As the team surrounds him, Lou has a confused look on his face, trying to process what is going on with him. By the time the Yankees broke camp, it's obvious something is wrong with their captain. But McCarthy is reluctant to sit Gehrig. The Yankees opened the 1939 season versus the Boston Red Sox. In his first at-bat, Lou steps to the dish with 2 men aboard. The fans of Yankee Stadium, they rise to their feet, howling for their Iron Horse to come through one more time, urging him on to greatness. But Lou hits a weak liner to right field, where Red Sox rookie Ted Williams makes the routine play. And in retrospect, that at-bat would symbolize the end of one era and the beginning of another. Gehrig continues to play the next 7 games, hitting just .143 with no extra base hits and only 1 RBI, and even he cannot deny he needs to rest. On May 2nd, 1939, Gehrig told McCarthy he needs to sit out a while, and with Gehrig's consecutive game played streak of 2,130 games, it comes to an end. For the next month, Gehrig traveled with the Yankees, but he did not play while his condition worsens. Eleanor contacted the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, where a team of doctors headed by Dr. Charles Mayo himself reviewed Gehrig's case. After 6 days of intensive testing, the doctors diagnosed Lou with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. The disease causes a hardening of the spinal cord, which leads to a slow, painful deterioration of muscles and nerve endings. Lou's incredible, strong, and athletic body would deteriorate, and he would eventually become paralyzed by the illness. At some point, his heart or lungs would cease to work, and he would die. And the doctors gave him 3 years at the most. And the cruelest part of ALS is while it ravages the body, it leaves the mind unaffected. Patients are usually cognizant and coherent until the end, and they are condemned to witness their own slow demise. This was Lou's fate, and he learned of it on his 36th birthday. On July 21st, 1939, the Yankees announced Gehrig's retirement, and that July 4th would be Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day. Almost 42,000 fans turned out for the ceremony, which took place between games of a doubleheader against the Washington Senators. Notable members of the great 1927 team showed up, including Babe Ruth, Earl Combs, Bob Musial, Tony Lazzeri. Wally Pitt was there, so was Everett Scott. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia delivered a speech in which he proclaimed, "You are the greatest prototype of sportsmanship and good citizenship." Joe McCarthy spoke, as did the Babe. And then Lou took the microphone. Overcome with the emotion and temporarily unable to speak, he rallies and he regains his composure to deliver one of the most famous speeches in sports history, in which he says he not only feels like the luckiest man on the face of the earth, even though he's been given a bad break, he has a whole lot to be grateful for. The end had come. Gehrig would never play another game. He had driven in 150 runs or more 7 times in his big league career, more than any other player. He hit 23 grand slams, a major league record finally broken by Alex Rodriguez in 2013. Following Gehrig's retirement, Major League Baseball circumvented their own rules by immediately inducting the Iron Horse into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. On June 2nd, 1941 at 10:10 p.m., 16 years to the day after replacing Wally Pipp at first base for the New York Yankees, Henry Louis Gehrig died at his home in the Bronx, New York. Upon hearing the news, Babe Ruth and his wife Claire went to the Gehrig's house to console Eleanor. Mayor LaGuardia ordered flags to be flown at half-mast, and Major League ballparks around the nation did the same. In 1969, he was voted the greatest first baseman of all time by the Baseball Writers Association of America. In 1989, on the 50th anniversary of ending his streak, he was honored with a U.S. postage stamp. In 1999, he was the leading vote getter for the Major League Baseball All-Century team. He was the captain of the Yankees from 1935 till his death in 1941. And folks, I think that's where I'm going to end it this week. I hope you enjoyed listening to the story of this immortal as much as I enjoyed presenting it to you. And I promise, freaks, I'll be in the cage bright and early and trying to be better next week. While my boy Gunner gets you back to your loved ones, patiently waiting your return to Terrapin Station, let's take one last look at those so impressive, legendary stats Lou left behind on his legacy and baseball resume. Okay, what do we got? Henry Louis Gehrig, a.k.a. Larrapin Lou, a.k.a. the Iron Horse, born June 19, 1903. So in a few days, we'll be celebrating this icon's 121st birthday posthumously. He died at the age of 37, June 2nd, 1941. Buried at Kensico Cemetery in Valhalla, New York. On June 15, 1924, at the age of 19, he becomes the 5,753rd player to join the MLB fraternity when he makes his big league debut versus the St. Louis Browns. 17-year Major League career, all with the New York Yankees. Two-time AL MVP, 1927 and 1936. Seven-time All-Star. 1934 batting title. 1931 Triple Crown winner. Six-time world champion. 113.7 wins above replacement, which is the 18th highest WAR of all time. 8,001 at-bats, 2,164 games, 1,888 runs, the 13th most in the game's history, 2,721 hits, 534 doubles, 163 triples, 493 home runs, 1,995 RBI, the 7th most in baseball, 102 stolen bases, 102 times caught, 1,508 walks, to only 797 strikeouts. 5,060 total bases, the 20th most ever. A 340, 447, 632 slash. Career OPS over 1,000 at 1.080, which is the third highest ever, and a 179 OPS plus. In 1939, a special committee inducted Lou into the National Baseball Hall of Fame ahead of the customary 5-year wait. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, seamheads of all ages, this is the story of Larrabin Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse. And I want to thank anyone who takes time out of your 24-hour day to listen to Backwards K-Pop. Please remember to leave a rate and review. Share with your C-Man buddies. Check me out on TikTok or YouTube under the Backwards K-Pop banner. You can find me on X at back_K_podcast. Or I'm usually just chilling with my krill on the Let's Talk Baseball Podcast Network Facebook private group page. Answer the questions. Come on in and join the chaos. As Gunnar has us racing up the tracks to get you nerds back to Terrapin, I can see the Lou Gehrig story getting smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror with a big, beautiful backwards K next to it in the scorebook. I now turn my attention to our never say die baseball hydra. I reach under my kimono, I grab my katana sword, and I chop the head off that beast. All is see, two more atomic spirit appear in its place. Our next chapter in our always evolving eclectic collection is going to be a throwback crib show, where we'll be dissecting the story of Philadelphia's Baker Bowl, the wood stadium that was home of the Phillies from 1887 to 1938. And if you follow the show from day one, you know I have a soft spot in my heart for the history of Philadelphia baseball. So that sounds like a lot of fun. I will never charge you, nerds, for the baseball content. No Patreon, no Twitch, no pay-to-play bonus subscriptions. I'm just going to keep coming through every week with that baseball smoke.
You don't want that smoke.
And I'm going to keep it consistent like Juan Soto, baby. So, I think I accomplished my goals this week. Bitty bitty must see. I came, I saw, I kicked the show's ass. Parents, if you see your kids sitting on the couch bored AF, by all means, take those little rugrats outside and play a game of catch. Thank y'all for coming out. God bless. and win the day. And like my boy Shea Hillenbrand told me in a one-on-one sparring session in the dojo a few years back, you go to hell, Andy Pettit. Me and my boy Charlie Guns were throwing up our Gunnar Hendersons, y'all. That's our number 2s. As in peace. Baker Bowl next week, nerds. See ya.